Hi guys, welcome back. Today I'm actually filming the podcast that I'm recording. If you didn't know already, I have a podcast. It's called Crash Test Mummy, and this will be the first official full-length episode. I already have one episode up there that's basically just a little intro and a placeholder, just kind of letting people know that there's going to be a podcast, but I already have several ideas for episodes coming up. I'm already in the works with talking to some other YouTubers to record some kind of collaborative episodes and interviews and things, which should be fun. But I'm not going to be recording them for YouTube the majority of the time. If it's a particularly good topic or subject or something that I would talk about on YouTube anyway, I may do that. But the whole point of a podcast to me is that I don't need to be camera ready. It doesn't need to be kind of a super quiet house. I can take my mic, I can take my laptop, I can sit in the car, which is basically a special made audio booth. Obviously, I couldn't really continue with the podcast that I had with Emma. We live at opposite ends of the country, much as we really enjoyed doing that together. And I may have her on the podcast occasionally if we can get it together to do that. It just wasn't possible to continue it. So I'm doing this by myself. I am going to have some people on occasionally, but it's going to mostly be me. If you are into that, you can subscribe by various means of subscribing to podcasts. I'll list some below. I have iOS, so I listen to things through the podcast app on my phone. And if you don't want to sit through a super long video, which this probably will be, you actually can just listen to the audio of this on my podcast. So let's begin. Welcome back to the Crash Test Mummy podcast. This is episode 2, and today we are going to be talking about what I consider to be the dangers of mummy blogging. Now, I realise that's quite salacious, and I kind of intended it to be, but what I actually mean by the dangers is not so much the protection aspect, although obviously we all have to make those decisions when it comes to parenting, you know, what is safe to put out there for our families. I'm not really talking about that because I kind of consider that if you are the parent of that child, that's completely within your remit. You know, you decide what's safe for your child. I'm not going to judge what anyone decides to put out there on the internet. I am definitely not the person to do that anyway, because I've put plenty of stuff on various social medias over the years about my children. However, what I mean to talk about the dangers is if you build your entire, effectively your career on your children and your family, what happens when those children grow up? Now, I'm kind of going through that right now because obviously Ella was 6 when I started making, that's not true, you know, I think she was 4 or 5. She might have been 4. She was young anyway. When I started making YouTube videos, she was very young. And now she's going to be 13 this year. And I have Milo, who's 6, and I'm seeing that massive difference in how I feel about Ella and how she is online and how I feel about posting things about Milo. I'm also feeling that pushback from Ella, who's almost a teenager, about what she wants me to post about her online. And most of that is that she doesn't want me to post things about her online. And so it makes me wonder what happens when these people who have built their entire YouTube audience base on sharing things of their families and their children, what happens when that all goes away? What happens when the children don't want to be involved in that anymore? That is a real interesting thing to me because obviously when you've got young children, you just don't think about it. Like when I was posting things of Ella, I never considered that one day she would want me to take that down. I wasn't really thinking that far ahead. And I think most people on YouTube are not thinking kind of 5 years down the line. This is still such a new thing, and especially as a job, this is still such a new idea that no one, I feel, has really gone through that very small child to teenage period. I think probably the closest that I've known of were the Hydrators, who used to be family vloggers, and for various reasons they stopped their daily vlogs. But I know that one of the things that they said was that they were going to stop anyway to give the kids a break. And I completely understand that, but what if they didn't have anything else? What if that is the sole income? You know, what if they hadn't become as hugely successful as they did? What if they were just kind of like medium successful? Both parents have given up work. Both parents are putting everything into one particular thing, whether it be a blog, you know, internet, whatever. You know, it could be absolutely anything. If you have focused all of your energies and all of your productive work time on creating this huge audience for your family, and suddenly your child turns around and says, I don't want to do this anymore, where do you stand? What happens next? Because you really can't push that back on the child. That's a valid thing. But further on than that, what if they say, and I don't want anything that's already out there to be out there? What if one of the huge YouTubers' children wake up one day and say, I don't want to do this, and I don't want anyone else to be able to see all these videos that you've posted of me? Like, really, what happens? What's the next step? What if one of these children gets to like even 10, and some maybe getting up there, and they say, this is really embarrassing? Worse still, and the thing that used to really play on my mind once Ella got to a certain age was, what if someone at school finds these videos and teases them because of them? What if you end up being the sole source of bullying for your child? That really, really bothered me. And, you know, I wasn't worried about the safety aspect at all, because I think, you know, yeah, there are some crazy people in the world, but there are crazy people regardless. I wasn't worried about that. As Ella got older, I definitely was concerned about giving people who are going to be mean people fuel to be mean to my children. And so the more I see of people popping up all over the place and becoming very, very successful family or mummy or daddy vloggers, the more I think, have they thought this through to the end? And I would absolutely love to speak to someone who is doing this as their job and this is their main gig. I would love to know what their end game is. Like, what's the future plan? What do you think is going to happen down the line? And have you got an idea of what you're going to say or do when your child turns around and says, okay, that's it? Because on the one hand, you want to respect your child, but on the other hand, you then have this audience who feel entitled to be part of your life. And so you are going to get some major backlash when suddenly you turn off the cameras. You suddenly stop featuring children. People want to know about it. I know from experience that there came a certain point, I'd say probably 3 or 4 years ago, where I started phasing Ella out in the videos. And that was intentional. And at the time, it wasn't her idea, it was my idea. And now it was 100% her idea. If she is in a video, she has either asked to be in a video or she has consented when I have asked her if I can film her. There is no way right now she would let me post a picture of her on Instagram. Unless she's like thoroughly vetted it, she just wouldn't. She is definitely of an age now where I can't just ignore how she feels. Milo's still young, but every time I put him in a video, I know at some point Milo could tell me he wants that video taken down. And so there comes kind of a period where you think, well, to be safe, should I stop putting them in the videos so that I know that I will never have to take this video down because it's a really good one? Should I start editing them out of the videos? Obviously, you've got your own family footage that you have kind of as a private thing. It doesn't mean that you're going to stop filming them and stop recording their lives, because you might want that for yourself. But where does that lie? Where is that line? And when do you start thinking about it? Because there are a lot of people that I watch and I just think, I really don't know where we're going to go with this. Maybe the strategy is to make as much money as you can and then get out. Maybe that's it. Maybe it's kind of just happened to these people and they think, well, this is amazing, but we know there's a timer on it. But I can't help but wonder, have these people considered it? They must have. They just must have. I don't know anyone personally that does this. I don't know anyone personally that kind of focuses on their children. In fact, most of the people that I know that do vlog and are online don't have children. And so it's not really an issue. But it's definitely something that when I meet people who do, it's my first question. And so far, no one's really had an answer for it. And I just kind of wondered how you guys felt about this. And as viewers, how do you feel when they just switch off the cameras? If that's what happens, how will you feel? Will you feel like you were owed an explanation? And what explanation will be good enough for you? And what age do you think they should be cutting that off? It's just, you know, if any of you have ever suffered kind of at the hands of bullies at school, then you will know how cruel they can be, number one, but also how they can take the most stupid little things and make you feel so terrible for them. So imagine if they had access to all of these funny clips and things that really did make you look quite silly when you were little. That's like a huge library of ammunition. for a bully. And I mean, we're just talking about like such small section of the problem with this. I mean, if you look at kind of some of the real hardcore massive family vloggers, they've got gifts and stuff. There's things out there that they will never be able to take down, things that are way beyond their control at this point. There are also whole gossip forums dedicated to talking about YouTubers and by extension, their children. I know that something that really put me off once upon a time was when I found that someone was talking about one of the kids. And they would talk about, I mean, I have a previous relationship, which is that Ella is from. And so on one of these gossip forums, someone was talking about my relationship with her dad and how her dad should have a problem with me putting her on YouTube. And these are the things that are there forever. And they have said whatever they've said. And, you know, came a point where I just stopped reading. So at this point, I don't know what they've said. And they could have written anything about my children, and they are almost both now of an age where they could Google something and they could find a whole thread about them because of something that I did that I just can't get past. Because regardless of anything else, I really do feel strongly that I would just want to shut the whole thing down if I found out that something I did had caused one of my children pain. And I'm not judging anyone. I do not intend for this to come across that way because I still put Milo in videos. This is not kind of what I mean by it, but I do wonder whether or not people have thought about it. On another hand, like moving away from kind of the super negatives, what happens when, for example, if every single video that I'd posted up to the point of Ella being 10, let's say, had Ella in it, every single one. And then Ella said, okay, I don't want to be in videos anymore. And I don't want anything out there with me in it. And I had to make every single video up to the point, at that point, private. Because I have to respect that that's what she wanted. What would I do? That would be my livelihood. Now, that's not necessarily the case for me, but if I'd been a huge family vlogger, that might have been the case. And then what? What happens next? These are just things that kind of go through my mind whenever I see a very successful family online. What is their next step once the children don't want to do this anymore? And this is assuming that they don't. Maybe they'll grow up and they'll be like, oh my God, this is amazing. I'm so happy you've made me this platform. Now I'm going to do this. And you know, you've created this amazing thing for me. That is absolute best case scenario. What are the chances that we're going to get through the teenage years without some kind of hiccup? I don't know. But that's just kind of something that I kind of wanted to bring to you guys to see what you thought of it, because it's something that is on my mind quite frequently when these things pop up in my subscription feed. And from my perspective, it's definitely something that's made me feel very strongly that I did not want to be a mummy vlogger. Although I am a mummy and I am a vlogger and I have featured my children, I never wanted that to be the focus of my channel, which I think is why I pushed away and like really fought the mummy title for so long, because I felt like mummy meant children, and it doesn't. Mummy is just what I am. And so everything I do is from the perspective of a mum. But I kind of fought that for so long because I thought that it had to focus then on my kids, and it doesn't. It really doesn't. And hopefully these people do manage to transition because we enjoy them, and they transition away from the children once the children are in full-time education and they're not available to be filmed all the time. Maybe they'll manage to make kind of a really smooth transition. Maybe they'll just keep having children and phase out the older ones. Maybe that's the plan. I don't know. But it is something that I think about, and I would love to know what you guys think. So you can find me at Michaela McDade on Twitter and Instagram. If you want to come and start a conversation about this topic, I would love to hear from you. If you haven't already, please subscribe to this podcast. If you haven't already, please give me a review. That would be amazing. That helps people find the podcast. That would be super useful for those people who haven't found me yet, but maybe would like to. And if you have any topic suggestions as well, you can find me in those places and suggest them there. But thanks for joining me today. I will be back next week, and I think next week we're going to have a guest. That'll be exciting. But yeah, hopefully I've kind of left you with a little bit of something to think about that maybe you hadn't thought about. Maybe, I don't know. But it is very much a question mark to me because I don't know the answer. But I do know from me, that is why I was not a mummy blogger. I'm not a mummy vlogger because I kind of felt like there was a finite amount of time on that, and I didn't want to be beholden to my children being on board with my career. for number one. And then later, as Ella got older, I realized there were other issues as well. But yeah, what do you think? Let me know. Thank you for joining me, and I will see you guys next week.